Good evening. I'd like to open tonight's meeting of Queensbury Zoning Board of Appeals, December 16th, 2020. If you've not been here before, the procedure is fairly simple. There should have been a agenda on the back table. We'll call each application up, read the application into the record, allow the applicant to provide pertinent details, question the applicant. The public hearing has been advertised. We'll open the public hearing, take comment from the outside interests. Then we'll poll the board and see where we stand with the particular project, and then we'll proceed accordingly. Just from a safety standpoint, there are a couple exits to the north here. We entered into this room. There's an exit to the south in the far corner, and there are two exits behind me to the east. But first we have to take care of a few administrative items. So, John?
I will make a motion for the approval of the minute meetings for November 18th, 2020.
So I have a motion. I'll second it. Poll the board, please.
Mrs. Hayward?
Yes.
Mrs. Hamlin?
Yes.
Mr. Henkel?
Yes.
Mr. Underwood?
Yes.
Mr. McCabe?
Yes.
And also, we're going to further table AV 31-2020 Podnorski till January 2021. Are we going to require any more information prior?
Yeah, correct. Information is due by December 15th, and I understand that it is in the process of being submitted.
It's a little late then. So I have a motion. I'll second it. Karen?
Mr. Underwood?
Yes.
Mrs. Hamlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Hayward?
Yes.
Mr. Henkel?
Yes.
Mr. McCabe?
Yes.
And we're also going to further table AV 39-2020 for Godnick till January 2021 with any information submitted by December 15th of 20.
So I have a motion. I'll second it. Call the vote.
Mrs. Hayward?
Yes.
Mr. Henkel?
Yes.
Mrs. Hamlin?
Yes.
Mr. Underwood?
Yes.
Mr. McCabe?
Yes. So we have a little unusual circumstance tonight. We're short a few members. We're down to 5, but you still need 4 affirmative votes for your project to go forward. You can automatically table before we even get started, or you can allow the present your case, see how the board feels, and you'll get an idea of how your project is going to go. So the first project tonight is AV 32-2020, David and Pamela Way. I'm going to ask that only a single person come to the podium. When you're done at the podium, wipe the podium down, wipe the microphone down. So the applicant proposes to install a 288 square foot dock. The existing home is 448 square feet. The new dock does not meet the required 20-foot setbacks. Relief is requested for the dock setbacks. The applicant requests relief for setbacks in the waterfront residential zone due to section 179-3-040 dimensional requirements and section 175-5-050 docks. The project is to install a 288 square foot dock. It's to be 16.5 feet from the north property line and 15.7 feet from the south property line, where 20 feet setbacks are required. The survey has been updated on 11/6/2020, showing revised setbacks. The criteria for considering an area variance according to Chapter 267 of Town Law: in making a determination, the board should consider whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of this variance. and staff suggests that minor to no impact on the neighborhood will be anticipated. 2, whether a benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance. Feasible alternatives may be considered limited due to the lot size and amount of shoreline where there is only 48.3 feet. Whether requested area variance is substantial, staff suggests that the request for relief may be considered minimal to moderate relevant to the code. The relief on the north side is 3.5 feet, on the south side is 4.3 feet. 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect on the or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or districts. Minor or no impact to the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood may be anticipated. And 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, the difficulty may be considered self-created. Staff comments: the applicant proposes to install a 288 square foot dock to an existing site. The parcel has an existing home that is to remain. The dock location is shown on the survey with setbacks. And the planning board, in its limited review, has...
So that's not part of this application? That's not for the way application?
Okay, excuse me. So, do we have anybody here from the Ways?
Thank you. Good evening.
Identify yourself for the record, please.
My name is David Way, 33 Canterbury Drive. As you just read, we have 48.3 feet of lake frontage. When we looked into the requirements for a dock, it stated that you needed 20 feet from each property line. So therefore, we believed that we had enough room for an 8-foot dock. We didn't realize that the property lines extend into the lake, and because the property lines are not perfectly parallel, we would need a variance. Therefore, we think the request is reasonable.
Pretty straightforward. Do we have any questions of the applicant?
Have you thought about a smaller dock at all? I mean, 8 feet is pretty wide generally. We don't, haven't really done too many with 8 feet, especially on Glen Lake. Thought about 6 foot, or what's the reason for going out 36 feet? Is it
It's
not
a-
that shallow there, is it?
Part of ours is shallow, and it's in the middle where the dock has to be. For about 10 feet, it's pretty shallow, like not, I guess about 8 feet out, it's at my knees.
I walked out there and it didn't seem to be that shallow. I mean, how big is your boats that you use, that you put there?
We don't have a boat yet. We need to get a dock first. We were looking at a pontoon boat in a 22-foot range. And I don't know how much water it needs to be, but I thought it might possibly run ashore.
You usually need too much, 6 to 8 inches a lot of times. That's all you need. They don't really go down that deep.
Okay.
You haven't considered a smaller dock, like a 30-foot by 6 feet?
We considered we might have to go down to 6 feet, but we wanted the length to stay away from the shallow area. To keep the boat away from the shore right there.
If you go 22 feet with a boat, with the motor out towards the lake, yeah, you still would be quite a bit of dock there left over.
So if we drop down to 32 feet,
Well, I'm just giving you my opinion. It's not everybody else's, but I'm just giving you my opinion on the width and length.
the width we wanted because we have elderly relatives and children, grandchildren, and we wanted to make sure we could get out to the boat and get into it safely.
Do we have other questions?
I do.
Go ahead.
How many boats do you plan to keep there?
We hope to have one boat.
Just the one? Okay. And had you taken any measurements, 36 feet out, how deep the water is?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so you're really not sure?
36 and at probably 20, it's quite deep. But there's like a sandy area and a drop off.
Yeah, that ledge there, okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Seeing none, public hearing has been advertised tonight, so at this particular time, I'm going to open the public hearing and invite people from the outside who might want to comment on this to give us a call at 518-761-8225. And is there anybody in the audience who would like to comment on this particular application?
Yes, good evening. My name is Paul Derby. I live at 31 Canterbury Drive. My wife and I own the property that's immediately north of Dave and Pam Way. We share a contiguous property line. I'm not opposed to the Ways constructing a dock. They're good neighbors, and they should have a dock on beautiful Glen Lake. I do, however, oppose the dock that's being proposed. It clearly doesn't meet the sideline setbacks. Even if you put 4-foot dock there, it doesn't meet it totally. But this particular 8-foot dock is just too wide for that small lot. Not only that, it would take up much of their own waterfront, but it would unnecessarily create more congestion in an already congested area. Also, there are many young children who play around that area, and overcrowding the space would make it dangerous. So rather, I would suggest that they do install a 4-foot dock. It seems appropriate to the property. The majority of docks on Glen Lake are 4 feet wide because the lots are small. And it seems to fit better. It would minimize the negative impacts, and I would be agreeable to a 4-foot dock that would be set in the center of the property. Also, while I'm here, just quickly, I would recommend that the Ways actually install a pull-out dock that can be removed in the winter rather than a permanent structure. I'm concerned about the use of an ice eater. I know they're not illegal. I know it's not the purview of this board, but the use of ice eater would certainly open the area along my shoreline. It would also open up water that would be dangerous.
Excuse me just
Sure.
a second here. This is Queensbury Zoning Board of Appeals. Are you calling in on the 33 Canterbury Drive project? Okay, can you hold on a minute? Are you watching? So there's somebody doing a presentation right now. What's that? Yes. Yes. Sure. Go ahead, sorry.
No problem. Yeah, so just a note on that. It does open it up, makes it dangerous. Also, opening the water does really spur invasive aquatic plants. Even open water like Eurasian water milfoil will still grow in that even over the winter. So it's just a suggestion for that, and we are prone to that in the inlet area. So one quick final point. I know the Ways have been actively looking to sell their camp and buy a larger place on Glen Lake. As I say, they're really good neighbors, but you never know what's going to come to follow. And therefore, I think a reasonable 4-foot wide dock that minimizes impacts seems in the best interest of the neighborhood. And that's all I have. I want to thank you for listening, and happy holidays.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board on this particular matter? Seeing no one, is there public comment?
Well, this is addressed to myself and Karen. My family has owned and enjoyed property for many years on Canterbury Drive. We have known the Ways since they purchased their property. They have been excellent neighbors and have done a phenomenal job restoring the property, including upgrading their septic. They are hardworking, highly responsible people, and I hope they are given due consideration for their variance. This is Russ Canterbury, and he didn't put his address on there.
I think that's the property 2 doors to the south.
Right. He just says Canterbury Drive. So the next one is addressed to myself and Karen. We are writing this letter in support of the dock variance for our neighbors Pam and Dave Ways. The proposal will be going to the town on December 16th. We reside on 43 Canterbury Drive. We did review their plan for the dock and are very supportive of the project. We are out of town and can't make the meeting. Thank you for sharing our support. This is John and Mary Jo Sabia. And this is addressed to Craig Brown. This is Michael Steerless. Good evening, Craig. My name is Michael Steerless. I own the home at 37 Canterbury Drive on Glen Lake. The home is adjacent to the home of David and Pamela Way at 33 Canterbury Drive. As you know, the Ways are seeking to obtain a variance to construct a dock on their property, which, given its configuration, does not meet the current setback requirement. I'm writing you to voice my support for the request, but also express some concerns for the size of the planned dock. The current plan contemplates an 8-foot wide dock, which is, in my experience, is highly unusual on Glen Lake due to the close proximity of homes. Given the configuration of the property, I'm concerned with congestion in the area and believe that a 4-foot wide dock would be more reasonable. The Ways are very good neighbors with a high degree of social environmental consciousness, and while I wish that I did not have concerns over the proposal, I do believe that the plan as proposed is a bit excessive and unnecessary. Once again, I want to express my support for a 4-foot wide dock, despite the fact that it still does not meet the setback requirement, as I believe that this would significantly reduce congestion in the area and will allow the Ways to fully enjoy the beauty of Glen Lake. Thank you for your time and consideration. And that's it.
So at this particular time, is there anybody else in the audience who would like to comment on this particular project? So at this time, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to poll the board, and I'm going to start with Jim.
It's always interesting on Glen Lake, and I think that we have to keep in perspective, you know, the situation there with smaller lots versus larger lots. Almost everybody's on a substandard size width lot, and so I think that, you know, the effect that you have on your neighbors is something substantial, no matter what your intentions are as far as this one. I think an 8-foot dock probably is a little bit excessive. It's the same width as the dock to that your neighbor has right next door, and you know, his lot is not that much wider than your lot, but it's probably twice as wide as your lot. I'm imagining.
Which house? One of the 8-foot dock?
The big house to your, if you're looking at your house, the house to your left.
Okay. That one's also 50 foot, I believe.
Yeah.
Roughly 50 foot.
Yeah, and I think the big issue is, you know, like as far as the traffic issue on the lake, the majority of boats on Glen Lake, from my experience, spend most of their time tied up to the dock. They're not out there on the lake. Maybe there's an evening circuit of the lake or something, but those are usually low speed. Party boats are not meant for high speed, in and out all day long or anything like that. So I think that, you know, the issue here is, you know, whether the 8-foot is appropriate. And you have a very small, narrow lot. It's only a little over 40 feet wide. And I think that, you know, probably an 8-foot dock would be more amenable for your use, because it's gonna, you have such a steep foreshore there, you know, leading down to the water too, you know. So I guess I'd be in favor of your project. As a compromise, if the board's not in favor of this project, I would propose, if you can't, if no one wants to go for the 8-foot dock, then we would go for propose a 6-foot wide dock instead as a medium.
Kathy?
I think I agree with Jim.
Michelle?
I'm in agreement as well. I think we need to consider alternatives here, and, you know, as part of our balance test, because we're charged with granting the minimum variance necessary. So I would say, you know, 4 to 6 feet I would go for, and I wish we knew how deep the water was there so we could determine how long your dock should be, but as it stands, I would just deal with the width.
So you two are agreeing to a 6-foot, right?
Yep.
I would.
And you are
I
also?
would agree with a 6-foot.
John?
Yeah, I would also agree with the 6, but I would say the length scares me a little bit too. I'd like to see that cut down to 30. I think, like most boats on Glen Lake are not that big, so 22 feet that they're talking about buying a pontoon boat there, that's still gonna give them, 18, well, the 22, so 8 feet. I'd like to see it reduce at it, not so, 36 is too much for me. I'd like to see 6 by 30, but
So you're a no then?
I'm still in the thought, but I'm still, 6 by 30 I think would be fair. I mean, Jim, you're on the lake all the time. Is there many docks longer than 30 feet out there?
There are a few longer ones, but, I think everybody has their own perception as to what length they need, so.
Because I did walk the property and I saw it wasn't that shallow. It'd be different if it was a shallow, I could see where, if there was a lot of muck there or shallow, I could see going out further. I would understand that, but I'm still a little bit tough on the 36 feet, but it's up to.
So,
Mike.
from my standpoint, I think we had quite a bit of argument on the docks to the south there around the corner. And I think we settled on 36 feet for actually 2 docks in that particular area. So I would support the 6 by 36. But that's going to be up to you. Is 6 foot, will that meet your? So can we then amend the application for 6 by 36 and instead of 8 by 36?
So where are you gonna take okay, so now it's gonna change the setbacks. On which side are you gonna change that on? 'Cause
Well, I think if you place it in the middle as anticipated, it'll just shrink in
Okay, so
each
1 foot on
side.
each side, so now you're gonna have relief of 4.5 and 5.1 then, right?
Yes.
Because we had 4.1 and 3.5. The relief is gonna go down, yeah, because you're gonna need less relief. So if you cut that, like they said, right in the middle, into a 6, now you're on your north side, you're gonna need 4.5 relief, and the south side, 5.1. Right?
You're gonna need less relief.
Sorry, so it's gonna be, so it's 3.1 and 2.5.
It should be 2.5.
2.5
3 point-
and 3.1.
3.3.
So the other thing to understand is, I believe that a 4-foot wide dock is standard. So I believe you're going to get into 6 foot being a odd size. So if you decide to stay standard, then our okay will be all right, as long as you don't exceed the 6 foot, you can shrink that down. So I'm going to, I closed the public hearing, right? So I'm going to, Jim, ask for a motion here.
I'll make a motion that we approve area variance 32-2020 at 33 Canterbury Drive. Having listened to the appeal this evening, the applicant's proposed to install it'll be less than 288 square foot dock now because it'll be a 6 foot by 36 foot dock. The existing home will remain the same. The new dock does not meet the 20-foot setbacks. As far as what will be required here, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties. While a 4-foot dock would be standard, a 6-foot dock is slightly larger, but the impacts on the neighbors on this narrow lot will not be significant. As far as whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible, they could put a 4-foot dock in, but they've compromised with us, and instead of going to a 4-foot dock, we're going to a 6-foot wide dock. And we're also recognizing that the forefront of the shoreline there is only 48.3 feet. As far as whether the requested variance is substantial, we feel that this request is minimal. It's going to be 2.5 feet on the north side, and it will be 3.3 feet on the south side.
Is it 3.1 or
3.1.
3.1, sorry. As far as whether the proposed area variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions, we find there will be no real impact. It's the addition of a single boat. Almost everybody has a party boat on the lake, and they spend the majority of their time tied up on the shoreline, not in and out all day long. And as far as whether the alleged difficulty is self-created, it may be considered to be self-created by the narrow nature of this lot. In addition, the board finds the benefit to the applicant from granting the requested variance outweighs any detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood. Everybody's aware of the nearness of their neighbors on the lake, and the applicant agrees that they will abide by a reasonable use of the property with the boat traffic going in and out. As far as the board finding the variance request under consideration is the minimum necessary, we would say that a 6-foot dock is the minimum necessary on this narrow lot. Based upon these findings, I make a motion to approve area variance 32.
You guys say that this is the minimum,
He did.
oh, we did say, excuse me.
Do we need to add this square footage difference of 216 from the 288 or no?
You should.
Okay, so 216 square feet is what we need to do, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So I have a motion, can I have a second, please?
I'll second that.
Michelle, call the vote.
Mr. Henkel.
Yes.
Mrs. Hayward.
Yes.
Mrs. Hamlin.
Yes.
Mr. Underwood.
Yes.
Mr. McCabe.
Yes.
Want any of the surveys back?
Yes, they'll need some of those surveys back.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Jim, keep in mind.
Thank you. So our next application is AV 45, Harrisina Community Church. The applicant proposes a 3-lot subdivision where the existing lot is 3.8 acres. Lot 1 is to be 1.3 acres. Lot 2 is to be 1.3 acres. And Lot 3 is to be 1.2 acres. Lot 1 is to maintain an existing home, 1,580 square feet with decks. Lots 2 and 3 are for future homes and associated site work. The planning board, in its review of this project, has identified an area of concern. They believe that the subdivision should be 2 lots instead of 3. The applicant requests relief for lot size in a moderate density zone. According to section 179-3-040 dimensional requirements, this project proposes a 3-lot subdivision where lot 1 is to be 1.3 acres, lot 2 is to be 1.3 acres, and lot 3 is to be 1.2 acres. And the lot size required is 2 acres in a MDR zone. Lot 1 will maintain an existing house, and the remaining 2 lots are to be sold for future homes. The criteria for considering an area variance according to Chapter 267 of Town Laws, in making a determination, the board should consider whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood, or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by granting of the area variance. Staff has suggested that this project may be considered to have little or no impact on neighboring properties. 2, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. Feasible alternatives may include reducing the number of lots. Whether the proposed area variance is substantial, relief may be considered moderate relative to the code. Relief for lot 1 is 0.7 acres, for lot 2 is 0.7 acres, and for lot 3 is 0.8 acres. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district, the project as proposed may be considered to have minimal or no impact on the environmental conditions. And 5, whether the alleged difficulty is self-created, the project as proposed may be considered self-created. Staff comments: the applicant proposes to subdivide a 3.8 acre into 3 lots. The Haresina Church will retain Lot 1 that has the existing home. There are no changes to Lot 1. Lots 2 and Lot 3 are to be sold for future homes. Lot 3 will have access on Clements Road. Lot 2 will have access on Ridge Road. And Lot 1, access on Ridge Road, will remain the same. The subdivision plans show the 3 lots and proposed house location and septic. Is there somebody here representing the church?
Good evening. My name is Matthew Webster with Van Dusen and Steves Land Surveyors on behalf of the Haresina Community Church. As you explained, the church is requesting relief from the minimum 2-acre lot size in order to subdivide the current 3.8-acre lot into 3 lots, which will be, of course, 1 retained by the church and then 2 saleable lots. I would just like to point out that all of these lots are able to accommodate septic and wells, well away from any existing neighbors and either of the new lots. And that the church sees this as the best way to stay financially stable and independent in these difficult times, of course, for all nonprofits. So this would allow the church to continue doing a positive in the community while having a minimal impact in their neighborhood. I mean, this is the church's neighborhood, so of course they would not want to be a detriment. And at the same time, I'd also just like to point out that these lots are still, the 2 new lots, if you will, would still be larger than many of these surrounding lots, even with the relief requested.
So do we have questions of the applicant?
Okay, so lot 1 is going to be still, you said stay with the church?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't have to worry about another, because you have only, otherwise we'd only have 1 driveway in and out of the parking lot.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
that, okay. So
Other questions of the applicant? Public hearing has been advertised, so at this particular time, I'm going to open the public hearing. I'm going to seek input from anyone on the outside who wants to comment. Give us a call at 518-761-8225. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to comment on this particular project? Do we have any?
There's somebody.
Oh, there is somebody? Oh, okay. I didn't notice. Did he wipe that down?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, name's Brian Willett. I'm adjacent to that property in Conversation. It's on 8 Clements Road, just on the other side of Clements. As far as looking at the property in question, you had mentioned that it's going to be divided up in 3 sections.
Yes.
Now with the Adirondack Park, isn't there a minimum of 2 acres in order to build within the Adirondack Park?
I have no jurisdiction as to Adirondack Park requirements. My jurisdiction is Queensbury Town requirements. This is zoned as MDR, so each lot is supposed to be 2 acres, and the applicant is asking for relief from that.
Now, the relief, I would question that one, because if you look at adequate sewage and well, the sewage and well, it's going to overtake that area because it's saturated as it is currently. As far as I see it across the road being developed, the runoff, it naturally grades down Clements. So with that, prior years, the rain, runoff, snow, everything as far as a health standpoint, septic, well, everything else for the neighbors that reside below them, everything is going to be flowing that way. Because the clearing of the property as of that, trees, shrubbery, everything else that would absorb that is now negated. So what are your,
But if anybody wants to build on this, they're gonna have to get approval through Board of Health anyways.
yeah,
I mean, it has something.
So we just have to, he's making comment, right? That's all we have to.
yep. So my view as far as from French Mountain to Buttermilk Falls Road, the traverse of the habitat, there's very little habitat because of development. Just south of us, it had already had a development that created an impact in natural wildlife. So we're slowly losing that wildlife preserve that the Adirondack Park wants to preserve, and that's slowly disappearing. So
Okay. Is that it?
that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to comment on this particular project?
My name is John Keyworth. I live on 31 Clements Road. And just want to reiterate Brian's concern on the runoff from there. And there is that buffer now where it's grown up so much. But especially in the winter, it's the runoff that's there already is a problem. It runs off down the road, and the sanders have to come and sand extra because it glazes over the road, and it runs through our property. And 2 years ago, I had 2 or 3 inches of water on my driveway that froze and thawed. So clearing that lot out isn't going to help me at all. This is going to create more runoff. And that's because one of the waivers they ask for is the wastewater considerations. So, or the runoff considerations. So that's my main concern.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Is there anyone else that would like to comment?
Sorry, did you clean off the microphone? Hold on.
There's a wastebasket right next to the podium there.
Hi, I'm Kathy Grant. I live at 1593 Ridge, and I'm directly across the street from the property in question. And I think my biggest concern is it appears that it is very wet over there most of the time. There is a lot of wildlife that live there. And the concern with them asking for a waiver of any of the wetland issue is a concern as far as runoff and as far as
There's no wetlands involved here.
if you go over and try to walk through there, you can't walk through there.
We can only go by what's
Yeah.
not designated.
Right.
Wetlands are wetlands.
Right, okay, I understand that, but I do think that is a problem as far as the erosion. By taking down any trees and by doing a building in there, I think it would be a detriment to that area and to Clemens Road as far as the runoff. And again, another concern is where the driveway placement will be as far as Ridge Road and Clemens Road.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Do we have anybody else that would like to comment on this?
I do have some public comments.
Hello?
Hi, I'm Sarah Purchato. I live at 100 Clements Road. I'm down further, but I actually butt up against the back of the church. My thought would be 2 lots. 3 lots, I think, are gonna be a problem. Because again, I'm going by what they're talking about number one, that lot that's closest to Clements, it's gonna be a problem getting in and out, either going onto Clements, because as it is right now, the road curves, and you almost can't see getting out of Clements. So you add another driveway either on Ridge or on Clements, that's gonna be a problem. Not only that, I have to agree with them, I don't get affected, fortunately, I should say, by the runoff, but I know it is on the top of that road when the weather's bad. They always have to come in and sand that upper part. And it just seems to me that that would be a bit much because, again, I will admit, there are some houses that are closer, but they've been there for a long, long time. Probably close to 100 years in some cases. But at this point, adding to that congestion of that area also just doesn't seem reasonable. Thank you.
Okay. So Laura, we have written comment?
Yes.
Oh, excuse me, one more.
There's one more? Okay.
Good evening. My name's Seth Stark. I reside at 1640 Ridge Road. You know, Harrisina is the cornerstone of that area, so I can appreciate the fact that they're under financial distress right now. I don't know if it would be a compromise to do the 2 lots instead of 3. I think there would be less impact. And I do have to say that the lots in question, I agree with everybody that lives around me, all my neighbors. It's super wet there, so maybe having less clearing might not have as great an impact. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Now you can go, Laura.
Okay. So we request that in reference to the area variance 45-2020 for the Harrisina Church property, that you do not grant a waiver for stormwater, and that if subdivision is granted, that you make the most stringent enforcement of stormwater regulations possible for the following reasons. 1, the water runoff from Ridge Road is already a problem for the people that live on Clements Road, more so in the winter than in the summer. In the winter of 2018, we had 2 to 3 inches of water over our driveway that would freeze and thaw depending on weather conditions due to the runoff from Ridge Road and the grade of Clements. Number 2, every winter poses a problem for the water as it travels down the Clements Road. As the town should know from past winters, extra sanding has been done during the freezing weather for the safety of vehicles down our road, as the runoff water will freeze in significant areas as it travels down the road. Number 3, the area in question for the variance in the corner of Ridge and Road and Clements Road provides some buffering for the snow melt and runoff. Granting a waiver to the stormwater management regulations will only increase the water runoff. In addition, the dense growth on this property has become a wildlife refuge and transition point for the animals of all types as they pass through our area. The growth in that area of protection for turkeys, deer, and their offspring. It would be a shame to lose that. This is John and Barbara Keyworth. This is a phone conversation between myself and Catherine Stanbridge at 8 Clements Drive. She explained that her lot is across the street from the lot proposed on Clement Drive. She would prefer if the driveway was not directly opposite her driveway, and would prefer the trees along Clements Road side to be keeping with the rural area. This is in response to my telephone call. I am a homeowner of a property directly across from Reverend Natalia Wimbley's home or parsonage at 1619 Ridge Road. The public hearing notice I received states that Harrisina has proposed a 3-lot subdivision build on the 2 adjacent lots, including Reverend William Wimbley's, I apologize, home to include decks. As proposed, I don't have an objection as long as it's only 2 homes on the adjacent properties. And this is sincerely Mrs. Agnes Vicati. And that's all I have for this one.
Okay, so at this particular time, would you like to come up and comment on any of the comments being made?
So can I just add to this before he starts, is that some of the comments and questions that were made are most likely part of the planning board review?
Right, I was going to take care of that when
Okay, so
he's
go
on.
ahead. I apologize, you can.
I guess as you stated, yes, a lot of this would be subject to the planning board review. We're simply here about the current lot size. And as a representative for the Harrisina Church, we thank all the neighbors for their comments, and we appreciate their feedback. Again, we are seeking to have a minimum impact on the neighborhood, as minimum as possible, while at the same time making this financially feasible for the Harrisina Community Church, which of course we feel as though 3 lots as opposed to 2 lots, obviously you can understand the significant financial impact on that.
Sure. So I'll just make a comment. First of all, just about everything that has been pointed out here has more to do with the the planning board and site prep than the zoning board here. All we're being asked to do is to comment on dividing this up into 3 lots where the lots are undersized. So we're being asked to okay undersized lots. Comments on, there's no buildings proposed here, so we can't talk about how runoff is taken care of. There's no buildings here, so we can't talk about curb cuts or anything like that. All we can talk about simply is it reasonable to ask for lots, basically a little over 1 acre where a 2-acre lot is required. So at this particular time, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to poll the board, and I'm going to start with John.
Yeah, I don't see there's much problem here. These houses can be built with no variances. I think you're only going to have one other curb cut onto Ridge Road, which is not going to create any more problems, I don't think. Yes, there's going to be a little bit of relief of, 0.7, 0.8, and 0.7 for relief. But that's kind of goes with all the other lots, especially the ones across the street from the church. And they all are going to have at least around 200 feet of road frontage. So they're not narrow lots. So I would be on board with granting them. The other things, like Mike said, is could be addressed by the other boards as far as stormwater and things like that. So I think those lots could support the houses. So I'd be on board with the 3-lot subdivision.
Michelle?
I'm really not enthusiastic about this. I kind of disagree with the applicant. These small lots really don't fit in the character of the neighborhood as far as I'm concerned. It's a mixed neighborhood. There are some very large lots not too far from there. And my concern is changing the character of the neighborhood. And just chopping it up into smaller lots over time. And I'm also concerned about the impact on the environmental conditions in the neighborhood. I know those can be ameliorated with stormwater management and will be addressed by the planning board, but it is part of our balance test. So
Okay.
I would be in favor of a 2-lot subdivision.
Kathy?
I agree. We're not approving the subdivision here. We're granting a variance from a requirement of 2 acres, which is the zoning. And I did not hear any compelling arguments other than a financial hardship, which is not a proper criteria to grant a variance. So I would be in favor of a 2-lot as well.
Jim?
I'm in agreement with John. I think if you went back to the original Harris land patents and subdivisions that were done hundreds of years ago, the intention of the area was for the area to become habited by people that were nice people to live with. And I think that, the proximity of the church, the Harrisina Church, has made is making a plea to us basically for its own survival. That's within our purview to also put that into the argument for or against what we're doing here. And I think that, 1-acre lots in a rural area are more than adequate in size. I think the impact of 2 extra buildings out on Ridge Road is not going to impact anybody I think the planning board will dial in the issues as far as runoff off these properties. You're gonna have one more curb cut on Ridge, you're gonna have one curb cut on Clements. I don't think it's gonna be that big of a change in the neighborhood, so I would support the applicant.
And I too would support the applicant. Certainly, we've been asked in MDR zoning for a lot smaller lots. The fact that these 3 lots are all over an acre is encouraging to me. And I don't see where it substantially makes a change to the character of the neighborhood. As the applicant pointed out, a number of the other houses in the area are on smaller lots. But unfortunately, you don't have enough votes here. So what you can do, if you want to go away, it sounds like if you reduce it to 2 lots, you'll get enough votes here, or you can wait until we have additional 2 more members and take the chance at that particular time. So it's up to you.
Can I have just a moment with the representative of the group?
Sure. I did. I believe I did.
Close the public hearing, yes.
Did you explain to them they can table it until we get
Yeah.
more?
We'd like to ask you table it for now.
Sure.
And we'll come back.
Okay, so, Laura, when's the next open? Do we have anything in January?
Potentially could have something in January, but their decision would have to come quickly. Their updated materials would need to be quickly. If that's not doable, then I would suggest.
Well, I think
February.
probably they're not going to update anything. They're going to take a chance on our new members. One of them going with their proposal.
Then you can table it to a January meeting.
So, John?
I'll make the motion to table area variance 45-2020 for Harrisina Community Church until January. Is there going to be one meeting in January, or just say January?
You can say the first meeting in.
First meeting of January 2021, with any new information submitted by December
Quickly.
15th, 2020.
Well, I would say that next week, so
If
we're at,
any new information.
if there's any new information, prior to December 25th.
So I have a motion. I'll second the motion. Call the vote, please.
Mr. Underwood?
Yes.
Mrs. Hanlon?
Yes.
Mrs. Hayward?
Yes.
Mr. Henkel?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes. So we'll see you in January. So our next applicant is area variance AV 46-2020, Jennifer Ball. So the applicant proposes a 2-lot subdivision of a 7.99 acre parcel where lot 1A is to be 5.89 acres and the house is to remain. It's a 2,890 square foot house with decks. And lot 2A, which is to be 2.09 acres, to be vacant for a future home. The applicant has proposed a typical residential home with septic for a vacant lot. Planning board review for the planning board has to review for the subdivision. The relief requested for lot 1A includes lot width. Relief is requested for lot 2A, which includes lot size, road frontage, and lot width. Relief required, the applicant requests relief for lot 1A for lot width and lot 2A for lot size, road frontage, and lot width in the rural residential 3-acre zone. According to section 179-3-040 dimensional requirements, the project proposes a 2-lot subdivision. Lot 1A width is proposed at 383 feet, where 400 feet is required. Lot 2A lot size proposed is 2.09 acres, where 3 acres is required. Lot width proposed is 290.6 feet, where 400 feet is required. And road frontage is 268.4 feet, where 400 feet is required. The criteria for considering an area variance according to Chapter 267 of Town Law, in making a determination, the board shall consider whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of this area variance. Staff suggests that minor to no impacts to the neighborhood may be anticipated. Whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. Feasible alternatives may include an adjustment to proposed Lot 2 to increase lot size to minimize the relief requested. 3, whether the requested area variance is substantial. Staff suggests that the relief requested may be considered moderate, relevant to the code. Relief for Lot 1A, lot width is 17 feet. Lot 2A, lot size 0.91 acres, lot width 109.4 feet, and road frontage 131.6 feet. 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. Minor impact to the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood may be anticipated. And 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, the difficulty may be considered self-created. Staff comments: the applicant proposes to subdivide 7.98 acres into 2 lots, with 1 lot of 5.89 acres, the second lot of 2.09 acres. Lot 1A of 1.89 acres has an existing home, and there are no changes to the site being proposed. Lot 2A has a proposed home, septic, and well. The project requires a stormwater permit due to the amount of disturbance. The subdivision plan shows the configuration of the 2 lots.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, board and public. For the record, I'm Lucas Doby with Hutchins Engineering. With us in the back are my clients, the applicants, Jennifer Ball and Dan Davies. This is their home on 253 Pickle Hill Road. It's the 8-acre boot-shaped lot, if you will. And we provided a lot of information, so it can be a little bit confusing, so please ask any questions along the way. We presented an overall subdivision plan because she has 2 projects going. She's a contract buyer of the 16 acres to the west, which contains the old truck garage there. So we wanted to present that to the board to show the overall plan that she's proposing a totally compliant 2-lot subdivision of that 16-acre piece. So we're really happy with the projects to really spruce up that neighborhood. We're here tonight to discuss the 2-lot subdivision of her presently owned parcel, the 8 acres, to subdivide off 2.1 acres to the east of her home for a new saleable lot. Again, as you said, Mr. Chairman, we're here for the reduced lot size of Lot 2A from the 3-acre minimum to 2.1 acres. We did look at alternatives to possibly add a tail, if you will, like a reverse flag lot to bring that up to 3 acres, but it would be a goofy looking lot, and it would be really no benefit to a potential buyer to have a 50-foot swath to the north to nowheres. So and if we did that, it would cannibalize Lot 1A, making the variance request more for that lot. So we tried to balance it out. We believe we have the best layout for the project. We're totally able to meet our setbacks, our density, and there's all kinds of open space there because it's essentially mowable hayfields now. So it's a nice redevelopment. We believe will have a positive impact on the neighborhood. And I also did include the 2013 subdivision plat, her original project, just for project history. where she bought 4.9 acres from Pam Harris in 2013. Subsequently, she bought 2 lots to the north of that, which are shown in yellow on an 11 by 17. And she reconfigured those. That's where the new greenhouse is, the Walker property. And then she merged the remaining acreage into her lot. So why I mention that is in 2017, she had 2 vacant parcels, flag lot and then the northerly lot. So she had 2 potential building rights, if you will. Since then, she's built 1 home and merged the remaining acreage into her lot. So we're basically asking to redo that, if you will, to pull that building right back out, move it to the Pickle Hill, the 2-acre lot. So we feel that's a higher position than if we were asked just a fresh subdivision, if you will. So with that, we'll be happy to entertain any questions from the board, and thank you for your time tonight.
So do we have any questions of the applicant? Seems pretty straightforward. So at this particular time, I'm going to open the public hearing and see if there's anybody in the audience who has a comment on this particular. You can hold up. Is there anybody in the audience who has comment on this particular project? And invite anybody on the outside who wants to call in to area code 518-761-8225. And Laura, do we have written comment?
There are no written comments.
So we got to wait out the 2 minutes?
That was the first guy called the first time.
They didn't want to go public.
That's my relative.
So Karen, you're going to tell me, right?
I will let you know, yep.
They don't use that Harris garage anymore, huh?
Well,
Back a few years ago, we gave them permission to, because they were in here for abandonment.
Well, the interesting thing on that, Mr. Henkel's, we hope to be back in a month or 2 with that project, not for the subdivision relief, but they plan to repurpose that garage, rehab it. So we'll need a variance for the site plan to do that. So we're excited to be back with you in hopefully a month or 2 with those plans.
So at this particular time, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to poll the board, and I'm going to start with Kathy.
Oh, I'm sorry, did I miss the part where we could ask questions, or may I ask?
That was a long time ago.
Oh, my goodness, how did I miss
Well,
that?
that's all right, though.
Well, I just wondered, he said something about you're in negotiations for land west of which parcel?
That is 16 acres to the west of her current home.
Of the one that will remain 5.89 acres? Okay.
Correct.
So the land's belonging to Pamela.
Yes. Jennifer's a contract buyer of that right now.
All right. Again, I've got to be consistent. I'm not really in favor of granting variances on lot sizes. I think the purpose of the zoning is for density reasons, and I think that possibly with that future purchase, you may be able to consider, as you said, cannibalizing a little bit per lot in order to meet, or get at least a little closer to what you did. So I would be against this as proposed. Thank you.
Michelle?
I'm absolutely agreeing with Catherine. I wish there was a way we could just split it down the middle and we'd have 2 compliant lots, and I'll be happy, but I just think that this lot 2A is just too small, and I wish there was a better way to configure it, because I know there's a property next door in that here zone, looks like, but I'm going to say I'm not in favor at this time.
John?
I can see Michelle's point and Catherine's point, but unfortunately in that area, if you look across the street there, most of the acreage is lots are smaller. They probably could, if she's gonna be purchasing the property to the west there, you're right, she probably could do something a little bit more with her property and give up more of her property too, but it's not gonna make a whole lot of difference, so. I'd be on board with the project as is.
Jim?
I'm basically in favor of the project. I think it's reasonable infill on Pickle Hill Road. You know, I understand why there's some concern by some of the board members, but 400 feet of frontage on a road is more than anybody needs, you know, and Pickle Hill is not a major thoroughfare. It's off the beaten path. It's a secondary road. And I think that, you know, we can accommodate this request. I don't think it's unreasonable.
And I too support the request. I don't think it's an unusual request, and I understand where you can't just, you know, hack it in half and make things come out. But unfortunately, I'm only one vote, so you're a vote shy. So you have the.
Okay, I'd like to change my vote. After listening to the testimony of my fellow board members, I've been persuaded, if you don't mind.
Is that kick I gave you under the table?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was painful.
So, yeah, so you just made out. So, Michelle, as a reward for changing your vote, you get to make the motion.
Oh, no, okay. It's a complicated one. All right, I guess it serves me right for, okay. I might need some assistance with all of the road frontages and
If you
everything.
make a mistake, we'll.
I know you do, you're very good at that. I would like to make a motion to approve area variance 46-2020 for Jennifer Ball at 253 Pickle Hill Road, tax map number 266.1-1-9.2. Let's see. I'm going to read this whole thing. We received an application proposing a two-lot subdivision of a 7.99 acre parcel where lot 1A is to be 5.89 acres and house to remain 2,890 square feet with decks footprint. Lot 2A is to be 2.09 acres to be vacant for future home. And relief requested for lot 1A include lot width, and that's it for that. So upon review of the application materials, information supplied during this public hearing, and upon consideration of the criteria specified in the town code and chapter 267 of New York State Town Law, and after discussion and deliberation, we find that there will not be an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood, nor a detriment to nearby properties. Pickle Hill Road is, as Mr. Underwood said, it's a side road. It's different than the previous application we discussed. So it would fit in the character of the neighborhood, especially with 400 feet of road frontage. Feasible alternatives have been considered and documented in tonight's minutes, and we find that they're reasonable and will minimize the request. The requested variance is not substantial, as demonstrated in tonight's testimony. No one would need a variance to build on this lot. So even though it's undersized, it would be adequate to house a home and would fit in the character of the neighborhood, as in the first part of the balance test. There will not be an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood, and the alleged difficulty is self-created but doesn't have bearing on tonight's proceedings. In addition, the board finds that the benefit to the applicant from granting the requested variance would outweigh the resulting detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood and community. We also find that the variance request under consideration tonight is the minimum necessary. So based on the above findings, I make a motion to approve area variance 46-220.
So I have a motion. Can I have a second, please? I'll second.
Prior to you taking your vote, I just want to confirm that you want to include the dimensional requirements for Lot 2A, which were lot size proposed at 2.09 acres, where 3 acres required. The lot width proposed is 290.6 where 400 feet is required, and the road frontage at 268.4 feet where 400 feet is required. It sounded like only the first sentence was read, so
You're correct.
just
Thank you.
confirming.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's what she meant.
Right, yeah.
Call the vote.
Mrs. Hamlin?
No.
Mr. Henkel?
Yes.
Mrs. Hayward?
Yes.
Mr. Underwood?
Yes.
Mr. McCabe?
Yes.
Thank you so much for your
We
consideration.
also need to grant 17 feet to the lot 1A or no? Or did you say that?
She said that.
Okay,
She did.
gotcha.
Do you need this?
Thank you.
Okay, so our next application is AV 47-2020, Penelope D. Townsend, 32 Bean Road. The applicant proposes to remove an existing 513 square foot garage to construct a new detached garage of 676 square feet with storage above. The total garage floor area is 1,352 square feet with a height greater than 16 feet. The existing home is 4,332 square feet footprint with porches. The new floor area is 7,220 square feet. The project includes a covered walkway from the house to the garage. Attached accessory structures are limited to 16 feet in height. There is a planning board review for the new floor area in a CEA. Relief is requested for height. Relief required, the applicant requests relief for height in a waterfront residential per section 179-3-040 dimensional requirements, section 179-5-020 garage. The new garage is proposed to be 22 feet in height, where the maximum allowed is 16 feet. The criteria for considering an area variance according to Chapter 267 of Town Law, in making a determination, the board shall consider one, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of this area variance. Staff suggests that minor to no impacts to the neighborhood may be anticipated. Two, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. Feasible alternatives are considered limited due to the location of the garage to be removed. Three, whether the requested variance is substantial. Staff suggests that the relief may be considered moderate relative to the code. Relief requested for the garage height is 6 feet. Four, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. The project as proposed may be considered to have minimal to no impact on the environmental conditions of the site or area. And five, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. The difficulty may be considered self-created. Staff comments, the applicant proposes to demolish an existing garage to construct a new garage. The applicant has explained the new garage will allow for storage as there is limited storage in the existing home. The plans show the new garage to be constructed and the covered walkway to the home. The storage area above the garage will be accessed with internal stairs. The applicant has indicated the structure is to be consistent with the existing house architecture.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Bitter. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. Penelope Thompson is also here with me, as well as Tom Hutchins, the project engineer. First, let me start off by saying that my client's parcel is over an acre in size. She purchased this property with structures on it that were over 100 years old, and she made it her priority to maintain the integrity of the historical designs of the existing structures. So in doing so, she renovated them. Unfortunately, the main structure that she renovated had beautiful vaulted ceilings, but no attic, no basement, small closet space, so virtually no storage. In renovating the structures on the site, she's left with the detached garage. There's an existing detached garage that's currently leaning and structurally unstable. It needs to be demolished and reconstructed. In doing so, she wishes to incorporate the storage that she needs for the site, as well as to maintain the historic architecture of all the structures. So specifically to include the design of the architectural roof that's depicted there, as well as the existing structures that are depicted on this board that's in front of me. The existing garage is 20 feet by 16 feet. And like I mentioned, needs to be renovated and demolished. With such, you had also specifically stated that we're incorporating a covered walkway, which will run from the rear of the garage to the existing main structure. The proposed garage is a 2-car garage. It'll be 26 feet in width, and it'll be 22 feet in height, which is proposed. So the only variance that we're seeking tonight is for the height of the structure. The upstairs of the garage will be for storage. No water, no plumbing, just electric will be incorporated in that structure. The height is needed to provide easy access for the storage of the stairs, as well as to maintain the roof line that is depicted on that picture. When you review the criteria, it's our position that the benefit to the applicant and the granting of the variance outweighs any detriment that could be existing and affecting the community. Specifically, there should be deemed no undesirable change. We're increasing the aesthetics of the site and incorporating the historical design that's always been there for over 100 years. The existing structure is not stable. This is a similar garage to other garages in the adjacent areas, specifically to the adjacent neighbors. There's 2 letters of support that you've been provided from those adjacent neighbors in your file. Although feasible alternatives may be deemed to exist in our evaluation, this is the less disturbing to the parcel itself, so it would be the best environmentally for the site. When reviewing whether or not this area variance should be deemed substantial, the applicant is simply replacing its structure and accommodating her storage needs. She has restored the property at site, the 100-year structure, so she should not be deemed faulted for not incorporated storage needs of structures that she was just trying to preserve. Allowing the applicant to match the design of the renovating buildings would just obviously increase the aesthetics of the site. And this is not a situation where an individual is overburdening an undersized lot. So there should be no adverse impacts deemed to exist, and it should not be deemed a self-created hardship. Positive recommendation by the planning board, and I'm just going to open it up to Tom to identify how we got here with the design.
Hold on a second. Gotta have her wipe it down.
Oh, sorry.
You get 2 points deducted for that.
Remember when I just used to pass the light?
Good evening, board. I'm Tom Hutchins, again here on behalf of Penny Townsend. And Laura's not there. I was going to look at the site plan, but I hope you had a chance to look at this property. The house is magnificent. It's an old-style house. It's been restored to
You can sit down.
unbelievable condition. And one of the characteristics of the house are these gambrel roofs with the shed dormers and the shakes up above, and we're maintaining that with this. That's really some of the driving force behind this garage. We don't want it to stand out and not look like it belongs. She wants it to look like it's been there 100 years, like the rest of the properties, in magnificent shape. She does need storage space, and you hear a lot of talk about low impact development. Well, one of the principles of low impact development is make space over your space, and don't grow out, go up a little bit. And in this case, it really makes sense. She doesn't want to see a big, huge garage in that position. She could. There would be no setback issues. She's got enough FAR. She's got enough permeability due to the size of the lot. But we really don't want to have a big, long garage that admittedly would be compliant with height, but it would not fit in with the property. So Doug has put a lot of effort into putting together this design. He did all the work on the house, and it'll match. It'll look like it belongs, and with that, we turn it over for questions.
We have questions of the applicant. I noticed in the guest house, there's definitely, you say it's a one-story, but there's definitely a second level in there.
No.
There's windows at the top there. Second.
Yeah, but it's a 15-foot structure, there's no second level.
Well, wait a minute, so, hold on a second.
Oh, I'm
So you're
sorry.
saying it's a cathedral ceiling type?
So wait a minute, just a second. So, Tom, would you wipe down?
Yep.
When I walked around it, it looked like there was a second story. It was windows at the top.
It isn't.
So first of all, we've got to have you identify yourself for the record.
Penny Townsend for the record.
Okay.
It is not. It is, it was originally called the Doll House because when Judge Rogers built it, it was Prohibition, and his daughter didn't, anyway, she liked to play
Okay, so what's on the second story?
It does not have a second story. It's only 15.
There's windows up there, right?
It has windows to let light in because it's very dark,
Okay, so then you're saying it's cathedral ceiling then? Because that's at all? It's got-
Well, it's open except where there's mechanicals. So half of it's closed off for mechanicals, but the other half, because it's so small, I tried to maximize the ceiling height because it makes the space not feel so small. I've lived in it for 2 years.
Because there's no storage, you're saying there's no storage in that house?
There's no storage. There's a little tiny closet for my husband and a little tiny closet for myself and a little tiny closet in the bathroom for linens, but
So the guest house is used as a guest house and you don't use it as, you can't
no,
use it as
and in
storage?
fact, I'm not looking for extra space. I come here to be outside. Originally, when I bought the property, there were 8 bedrooms. Now there are 5. So
I'm just trying to address the question of storage. You're saying that you need storage.
I do, because there is, like I said, because I knew I'd probably have to live in it for a while, there's a little, a space that I can prepare food in, there's a sitting area, there's a bedroom and a bathroom, and that's it. 2 little small closets, I think they're about this wide, one for my husband, one for me, and a little linen closet in the bathroom. That's it. Everything else has gone into the garage that's about to fall down. And quite frankly, we never brought very much stuff because there wasn't any place to put it. But all the stuff that's been in storage for 3 years has now all arrived, and there's no place to put books and.
You're saying you have square footage of over 7,000 square feet roughly.
Well, I don't know where that comes from because the house itself is about 3,500 square feet. There's a bedroom upstairs that's got a closet, and that's an okay-sized closet. My closet, my husband said he'll charge me rent if I want to put anything in his closet, and fortunately, I don't need a lot of clothes.
So you said this is a 5-bedroom house now?
It is.
So you have five people living there?
No.
And then you have also a guest house, which is another bedroom?
No, that's included. The main house was 6, now it's 4.
Okay.
The little guest house was 2, now it's 1.
Sounds like a lot
And-
of space for 2 people. You said there's just 2 of you there?
Well, 2 of us are there most of the time, but we have 5 children who haven't been able to come, but we have 5 children. So, and I've chosen to keep it like an old Adirondack camp because I've been coming to the Adirondacks since I was 2.
That's a
And by the
beautiful piece of
time this
property,
is
no doubt.
done, I'll be close to 75. So, got a lot of stuff, got a lot of kids, got a lot of kids who say, Mom, you can keep those baseball cards 1 more year. Pokemon cards, maybe. Baseball cards aren't worth anything anymore.
Okay, thank you. So if you could wipe the podium and the microphone down.
And those of you who've been there know that the trees are here. spectacular.
Oh, it's a beautiful lot, there's no doubt.
And I kept,
Other, yeah. Other questions of the applicant?
Well, not the applicant, no.
Well,
Well,
I'm
one
using
of the
that as a
representatives.
general term.
Okay. You mentioned earlier, and maybe the applicant does want to listen to this, you didn't want to go wider for some reason, which might adjust the pitch and get rid of a little of the height. Is there, can you expand on that, why you don't want to do that?
well, Tom, you can.
Well,
You have the room apparently.
Yeah, you're right, they have the room, and they have the room that they could do that variance-free. And instead of that building, it would look more like that, which is a 16-foot high roof. Doesn't match the architecture of the property. It would disturb, almost double the area. It would take out an area that's presently a landscape garden area, and we would put a low flat garage there. It would block more of the view of the house from the road.
But would you have to add an entire bay to get the pitch and be able to bring the height down?
Yes.
Even just a little to compromise, because normally this board doesn't like to give a lot of height variance, and
Yeah,
I know that, and that's
I told you
quite a
that.
bit, that's quite a bit. If there was a way to compromise, I mean, I'm not necessarily against this personally when it goes to full board, but
My feeling was that the character of the neighborhood, we talked about it, and nobody likes to come for a variance. And personally, I feel that that would be more disruptive environmentally, visually, and less consistent with the neighborhood, because if you drive Little Bean Road, almost all the garages are two-story garages.
well, my question is it that you go full bore with a 3-bay, that just maybe you add a little extra storage to the sides, and would that in any way bring down the height? A little bit?
That's what it would look like.
Well, that's.
It would have to have a flat roof. Whatever you do would have to have a much flatter
Oh,
roof.
okay, all right.
Okay, and that's what we're trying to match the gambrel roof and the.
No, I agree 100% with that.
And we understood that there was his, as far as reluctant to give height variances for, that's why we're very articulate with explaining how the factors have been met, so that we appreciate you have to evaluate it and that this circumstance is different than others.
I'm good.
Other questions of the applicant? So at this particular time, I'm going to open the public hearing. Anybody that's watching from the outside can give us a call on this particular project at 518-761-8225. And Laura, do we have a written comment on this particular
We do. So
application?
this says, "We have spoken with our neighbors, the Townsends, regarding their application for a variance to rebuild their garage at 32 Bean Road to accommodate two cars and to raise the height to provide storage space above. We are in support of what is being proposed." This is Rita Whiteman, thank you. And then, I apologize, I can't make out the second name, the signature that's there.
It's probably Bob.
Okay, we'll call it Bob. All right. And then this one is, "We have spoken with our neighbors regarding their application for a variance to rebuild their garage to accommodate two cars and to raise the height to provide storage space above. We have no objection to what is being proposed." And this is James David Michaels.
So we have nobody in the audience who would like to speak on this particular application? So we just have to wait for another 30 seconds, maybe 45.
About 30, yeah.
Okay, so at this particular time, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to poll the board, and I'm going to start with Michelle.
I'm in favor of your application. Usually, I'm not in favor of height variances, but I think to keep in character with the neighborhood, and certainly the architecture of this, house, which is, maybe not quite historic, but it's a beautiful home. I think it meets the balance test except for, the substantialness of it, but I can live with that.
John?
Yeah, I'm also in agreement with Michelle. I'm definitely usually not giving too much in height relief either, but in this case, they do maintain the property well. I don't think it's gonna cause any sight problem for anybody seeing the lake. Yeah, I'd be on board with it.
Jim?
Yeah, I think you have to recognize what they're trying to achieve here, and I think it's reasonable. It fits in, it looks like it belongs, and I think that, and normally when people come in for overheight variances, we're reluctant to give them, but in this case here, I think that this one here adequately fits with what, we expect things to look like, it's not gonna be a major detriment to the neighborhood, it's not gonna be a major negative change, and I think that the fact that everybody supports it, and it's near neighbors, I think that gives it a plus.
Kathy?
I agree. Again, 6 feet is substantial, but they're really not even increasing the footprint of the existing garage all that much, and you certainly are entitled to a garage, so definitely keeping the historic nature, the architectural integrity is important too. So I would be a yes.
And I'm normally pretty stringent on height variances, but you've made a compelling argument. Congratulations. And I do think that it maintains the character and beauty of the property. So I'll support the project also. So given that, Kathy, can you make us a motion here?
Oh, okay. Let me get to my script. With regards to area variance for 7/2020, Penelope Townsend, regarding height variance of a balance of 6 feet for a garage to be 22 feet. We're only 16 for an accessory dwelling is allowed. We have determined that this does not create an undesirable change in character of the neighborhood nor detriment to nearby properties. We've explored feasible alternatives such as widening the garage, but the board has considered this and it's considered by the board, and they really are not. They are not the best alternatives for the plans for the property. The requested variance, we've determined it is a bit substantial for our experience, but that is only one factor. There is not an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood. This alleged difficulty, I think that it could be considered self-created to a good extent. In addition, the board finds that the benefit to the applicant from granting the requested variance would outweigh, would be outweighed. Hang on, let me read this again. Hold on a second. The board finds that the benefit to the applicant from granting the requested variance would, outweigh any resulting detriment and help to the health, safety, and general welfare of the neighborhood community. The board also finds that this variance request under consideration is the minimum necessary. The board has not proposed any conditions. So I move that we approve area variance, AV, area variance 47/2020.
So I have a motion. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Michelle, call the vote, please.
Mr. Henkel?
Yes.
Mrs. Hayward?
Yes.
Mrs. Hamlin?
Yes.
Mr. Underwood?
Yes.
Mr. McCabe?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Happy holidays.
Do you need any of the prints or anything? So our next application is AV 48, 2020, Bonnie Rosenberg. The applicant proposes to construct 2 residential additions. A north side addition of 64 square feet is an upper level, and a south side addition of 2-story is 370 square feet footprint and a 740 square foot floor area. The site has 1 main home and 2 cottages, 1,855 square foot footprint for all 3. The project involves a new wastewater system and reduction of decks and floor area. The existing floor area is 4,634 square feet. The new floor addition of 506 square feet will total 5,140 square feet. The planning board has a site plan for the new floor area in a CEA. The relief requested is for setbacks and floor area. Relief required, the applicant requests relief for setbacks and floor area in the waterfront residential zone per section 179-3-040 dimensional requirements. The project involves 2 residential additions. A south side addition is to be 18 feet from the property line where a 20-foot setback is required. The shoreline setback is proposed to be 41 feet where the setback of 83 feet is required. The floor area is proposed to be 24.8%, 5,191 square feet, where 22%, 4,600 square feet is the maximum. The criteria for considering an area variance according to Chapter 267 of Town Law. In making a determination, the board shall consider, 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood, nor a detriment to nearby properties will be created by granting this area variance. Staff suggests that minor to no impacts to the neighborhood may be anticipated. 2, whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance. Feasible alternatives may be limited due to the existing lot configuration and house location. A variance may be required for any addition to the home due to the setback requirements of the WR zone. 3, whether a requested area variance is substantial. Relief may be considered moderate relative to the code. Relief on the south setback is actually 2 feet, and the shoreline is 42 feet.
No, so
The relief for the floor area is 591 square feet. Did I do that right, Laura?
No, so the shoreline relief is, or the setback is to be 83, and did you say, you said 41? Probably right. 42.
It says the proposed is 41, so I said that the difference between 83 and 41 is 42, right?
Correct, I'm sorry, yes. You got it.
4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. The project as proposed will have minimum impact on the neighborhood. And 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, the difficulty may be considered self-created. Staff comments, the applicant proposes to construct 2 residential additions to the main house. The north side addition of 64 square feet is on the upper level. The south side addition is 2-story, 370 square foot footprint with a 740 square foot floor area. The project includes new wastewater, stormwater management, reduction of decks and floor area. The 2 camps on this parcel are to remain as is. The project includes the removal of a portion of a covered deck on the main house by 2 feet, 503 square feet. This moves the home further back from the shoreline.
Good evening. I'm Dennis McElroy with Environmental Design, representing Bonnie and Stuart Rosenberg on this area variance application. Bonnie and Stuart are in the audience, and Doug McCall, who is the design builder for the proposed addition, is with us also. As described, the Rosenbergs are proposing additions to the existing structure. They have owned this property for 35 years, lived there primarily extended summer use. They have reached retirement time and are hopeful of living here as a primary residence, so that they hope to make some additions, renovations to the existing structure to just make it more compatible to year-round occupation. Doug McCall has worked with them to design the improvements that they desired, trying to keep a balance between what they were hoping to achieve and bumping into some of the variances that sometimes happens on the lakefront lots. So as, again, as described, the variance, there are 3 variances, and I'll start with the floor area ratio, which is a combination of some new floor space, removal of some floor space, removal of some decking, which qualifies as in the FAR computations. So we get a total now that results in a floor area ratio proposed of 24.8. So a 2.8% bump. There's a side yard setback proposed on the southerly side of the property. And you could see on the site plan, we've tried to highlight, it's that little sliver of red that starts from 0 and extends to 2 feet, because the wall line isn't parallel to the property line, so it converges a bit and results in this 18-foot setback at that closest corner. And then the shoreline setback is a little bit unusual. First of all, this is a pre-existing non-conforming structure, as we often encounter. The existing shoreline setback is 39 feet. The proposed shoreline setback by the removal of some deck would be 41 feet. But this is one of those situations where the ordinance speaks to the setbacks of the 2 adjacent properties. We've got one to the north that is 99 feet back for their own reasons. The one to the south at 67 feet back, therefore the average is 83. So we're going from 41 to a 83-foot standard, so it's a 42-foot relief as the chairman had done the math. So those are the 3 variances that are being requested, and we are hopeful of your approval. I think Stuart wanted to make some comments about the efforts that he had made in contacting his neighbors and whatnot, and I think I'll let him have a few minutes to speak to that.
So just wipe down your podium and your microphone.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, staff of the committee. I'm Stuart Rosenberg. We live on 73 Knox Road. This has been our home for 35 years. And it was one of the happiest days of my life when we found it in 1985, other than meeting and marrying my wife Bonnie and having...
It's good you said that.
And grandchildren, so that was number one. This house is a camp, and all we're trying to do is make it into a retirement home that we can be comfortable in. And as you get older, you like the bathroom close by, you like the laundry close by, and Doug McCall was able to design us a house that we think we can be comfortable in for the next 35 years. And that's basically what we're looking for. Chris has given you the dimensions and the variances. I won't go into that because that's not my field. But I did seek the neighbors just to make sure they were okay. And my granddaughter drew a map. Okay, and the stars are my neighbors, and they are all very affirmative in what we're doing, and it's gratifying to see their response. So I don't know if you can see the map. So it's pretty much the majority of neighbors. So anyway, I'm here for any questions, but I'll know it's going to be a cold and snowy night, and I thank you all for coming out tonight. Thank you.
Sure. So if you could just wipe down the podium and the microphone.
The 2 cabins there, are those rentals?
No, no. When we first moved in 1985, we did rent. In retrospect, that was a mistake for 5 years. And we're the only one on that street that had a mortgage at the time, and that helped us pay the mortgage.
Understand.
But for the last 30 years, the cabins have been the home for my lovely sister-in-laws and their families. My wife is one of 3 sisters, and they're the closest sisters you'll ever meet, from Los Angeles, Toronto, Montreal, and Albany. And we get together every summer, and they stay in the cabins.
Great. Do we have other questions of the applicant?
None of the applicant, may I ask staff a question?
Sure.
I'd just like some clarification. The 83, I get the averaging. What's the, okay, so it's 50 or 83?
No.
So it's the more
50 would
restricted.
say typographical error.
Adjacent.
It was a typographical error?
Yes.
Good, no wonder I was confused. All right, thank you. No problem.
Other questions? Seeing none, I'm going to open the, is there any, so seeing no questions, I'm going to open the public hearing. Invite anybody on the outside who wants to call in to give us a call at 518-761-8225 on this particular project. And this is the Queensbury Zoning Board of Appeal. Okay, on the route. Yes, okay. Hold on. Go ahead.
Yes, am I on?
Yes.
Hi, my name is John Collins. I live at 35 Knox Road, Assembly Point.
Are you one of the stars on the on that on the picture there?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
But I've turned down the sound.
Go ahead.
All right, so I live at 35 Knox. I'm a neighbor.
Yep.
And I did have a discussion with Stuart Rosenberg, and the comments I'm going to make now are pretty much the comments I gave him.
Okay.
So the current configuration of the property is a main house and 2 cabins with 6 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms. The proposed configuration would generate 7 bedrooms and 6 bathrooms. The current house is about 2,040 square feet, and with the addition, it's going to go to 2,864 square feet plus or minus. That's a 40% increase in the size of a non-conforming main house. The floor area increase is due to adding 1 new bedroom, 2 new bathrooms, and increasing the size of 2 existing bedrooms, the family room, the kitchen, and the dining room for a total of, I believe, 824 square feet. The floor area decrease is due to a reduction in outside decking and a concrete pad at the lakeside portion of the house for about 390 square feet. It's important to recognize that the negative impact of substantial floor area increase in the actual living area on this non-conforming house significantly exceeds the negligible relief provided by reducing outside decking. Per the application, the FAR is proposed at 24.8% versus an allowable 22%. FAR provides equal weighting to outside decking and sheltered living space. We should not lose sight of the variation and impact of these different floor areas, especially since we're dealing with a current non-conforming property. We also can't lose sight of the fact that the house is still to be proposed to be at 41 feet from the lake rather than the 83 feet to be in compliance with the current setback regulations. Another issue is permeable surface area. And this, although you're not looking for a variance in this, this does have an influence on how much addition, if any, additional square footage you allow in the house, because it goes to the overall impact of the property in the area. My rough calculation of the grade of the property is 17.5%, with an impermeable surface accounting for 42% of the total square area. The proposal would only reduce impermeable surface area to 41.3%. Upon closer examination, I think it is important to look at grade in 3 increments. The first being from the lake on the front lawn to the house. This represents about 4,100 square feet at a grade of 14.6% and is minimally impermeable. In other words, it's all pretty much all permeable. The land immediately surrounding the house represents about 5,300 square feet at a grade of 17% and impermeable surface of 34%. And then from the house up to the road represents 11,500 square feet at a grade of approximately 18.9% and an impermeable surface area of 40.5%. And included in that area is the absorption bed and the small cabin septic system. The proposal has not made a serious attempt to significantly improve the permeability of the site. To achieve a permeability ratio of 75%, you need to reduce about 3,400 square feet of impermeable surface. I feel strongly that this application should be denied. Now, how could the applicant achieve their primary goal to create a proposed home environment in the main house which will more fully meet their needs and desires in retirement? First, the small cabin should be removed from the property and the proposed dedicated septic system eliminated. This will reduce FAR to a number closer to the allowed maximum. It'll reduce the impermeable surface to 38.9%, although it still greatly exceeds the maximum of 25%. Provide an area for expansion of the absorption bed serving the main house and large cabin area, and still maintain the current 6 bedrooms count and an increase to the bathrooms to 5. Second, it should integrate greater stormwater mitigation measures throughout the paved areas due to the significant grade on the property. Third, consider eliminating 1 out of the 2 driveway entrances, which would also decrease impermeable surface in the area of the steepest grade. 4, remove the deck and concrete patio facing the lake. This will have the effect of moving the setback from the lake from 39 feet to 54 feet, although it's still far short of the 83. It would improve the FAR by due to removing the concrete patio, would eliminate some impermeable surface. Although removing the small cabin and the concrete patio and deck would reduce FAR below the allowed maximum, I believe this is reasonable, taken in conjunction with the issue of permeability of the site, as these recommendations would only reduce impermeable surface from the proposed 41.3% to 37.3%, which again is significantly in excess of the 25%. Also, they should be replacing all trees removed on the property with trees of similar size or as close as practical. And finally, create a buffer to the lake in design which fully complies with the current regulations. I appreciate the Rosenberg's goal to improve the main house for the retirement and improve their septic system. However, this property is currently non-conforming in a very significant way, and they are seeking to make very material changes to the house.
Mr. Chairman,
40% increase in square footage without
they've exceeded
materially
their minutes, so
addressing
you
the
might want to see if we can wrap it
non-conforming
up.
aspects of the property in any meaningful way. The variances they are seeking are far more consequential to the impact of the lake than just reducing 2 feet of decking to improve the setback from the lake and creating 2 feet of encroachment on side setback while only increasing the floor area by about 389 feet. It is clear that Rosenbergs are motivated to improve their septic system and main house to enhance their life at the lake.
All right, I got to, you far exceeded your 3.5 minutes here, so I got to cut you off. Is there anything else that's...
I just wanted to acknowledge that I know they're trying to do something nice and create a nice house. However, the challenges of the site require them to take these other acts to achieve the design of the house that they're looking for.
Did you state your name for the record?
Oh, I did, but if I didn't, it's John Collins, 35 Knox Road, Lake George, Assembly Point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any written?
We do have
Oh,
it, but
hold on a second.
that didn't surprise me.
This is the Queensbury Zoning Board of Appeal. Oh, okay, Chris, hold on just a second.
Thank you.
Go ahead. First, state your name.
Okay. Chris Nowitzki, Lake George Waterkeeper. Are you hearing me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. Again, Chris Nowitzki, Lake George Waterkeeper. Before I start, I would like to acknowledge that I met Mr. Rosenberg out on his site, and we had a nice meeting discussing his application and potential recommendations to improve. This is a bit difficult because I try not to look at the names on applications, but treat each application on what the application is for. But we find that this proposed application fails to balance the test in light of the existing floor area, increasing the number of bedrooms and the site conditions, especially within the critical environmental areas surrounding Lake George. Measures that could improve the balance of the application could be the reduction of existing floor area, increasing stormwater management, and more diverse vegetative planting. We recognize the enhanced wastewater treatment system proposed, but ask that there be determination whether that meets all requirements of the town on setbacks to foundations and construction on steep slopes. This will have an undesirable change in the neighborhood. The proposed FAR variance would increase the number of bedrooms and subsequently the wastewater treatment system on the undersized lot. The installation of the new system is recognized, but it must be remembered that FAR is based on the site area to adequately mitigate environmental impacts from development. Very few lakefront residential properties have 3 dwellings and a total of 7 bedrooms, and recommend to find more of a balance on the application. The variance will have an adverse effect on the environment. As stated, FAR is a planning tool and a metric to determine the size of development that can be adequately mitigated on a property. The proposed mitigation measures fall short of the town code requirements for shoreline buffers and stormwater management, especially on a property that exceeds allowable permeable surfaces by 60% with steep slopes. These are important protective measures for properties that have compliant applications and should go beyond the standards if proposals are permitted to exceed the allowable restrictions. It is imperative that review boards around the lake understand the cumulative impacts to Lake George from increased development, evident from the recent harmful algal bloom in the town of Queensbury. They apply the town code regulations that have been adopted to protect and preserve the water quality of Lake George. We recommend that the applicant consider alternatives to eliminate the variances requested and improve the balance of the application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This is the Queensbury Zoning Board of Appeal. Okay, this is the Rosenberg application. Okay,
That's correct.
go ahead. Just, excuse me, state your name again, please.
Carol Collins, 35 and 79 Knox Road. Dear zoning board, this is the type of application that should not be allowed to define the future of Lake George, and we urge you to deny it. The applicant and her husband, Bonnie and Stuart, are looking for substantial relief, what should be a major project on a non-conforming lot with steep slopes and limited soil. Their request is in no way slight, and as has been indicated. Benefit of the new system does not override the considerable impacts of this development on water quality and the safety of drinking water. There are multiple problems with this application. I urge you not to separate issues and grant partial relief on any one, as each component can and will impact the entire plan. The extensive expansion of floor area, as reviewed by Chris Novitsky and John Collins, is clear. Any relief for FAR should only be granted when the application is in compliance with town code for stormwater mitigation, septic systems, shoreline buffers, and development on slopes. Staff comments, by the way, have indicated these requests are typical of commercial projects. I'd like to remind you this is waterfront residential in a critical environmental area. The town stormwater management officer, Craig Brown, requested that the application be reviewed by the town engineer, Chazen. Chazen responded with a letter saying that determined the application was incomplete and requested additional information from the applicant's agent.
Excuse me, these are issues that are not for the zoning board, but this is per the town board.
Yeah, I understand that, but I also feel that these greatly impact on each other. And just to remind you that these stormwater mitigation issues can impact what's being requested of the on the neighborhood. So I would like to say there was 8 requests made in the stormwater mitigation plan,
But I'm going to remind you that stormwater is not our purview here.
Okay. I would like to say that the town code does state that no application for approval of a land development activity shall be reviewed until the appropriate board has received a stormwater pollution prevention plan, and that it is in accordance with the specifications of chapter on stormwater. And I'm just saying that has not been received, and and the application is complete in this regard. You see what I'm saying?
No.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So do you have anything else? So what we're looking at here are setbacks and the floor area ratio. So do you have anything else to add on these 2 items?
Well, just that, well, I have a lot on the whole thing. Now,
Well, you get 3.5 minutes, so you've used more than that. So if you could narrow that down a little bit, I can give you a little bit more time, but you have to stay on the subject here.
Well, I would like to then just reiterate what the others have said regarding the...
Well, that's right. We've heard we heard quite a bit from Mr. Collins, so you know we understand that. Do you have anything in addition to add?
Well, I do on shoreline buffering. I don't know if you want to hear about that.
Well, that's a planning board.
Okay. All right, well, I would say this. I would suggest that the removal of this small cabin to improve permeability, which is now 42%, and code requires 25. This would allow for the expansion of an undersized absorption field, and the development of a low-dust buffer should be designed to capture runoff and pollutants from the steep slope. And one of the driveways should be removed in order to allow to increase permeability. And a compliant stormwater plan should be developed as required before the permit, before any activity is considered on the application. And I guess that's it.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your input.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. I think we're gonna get one more call here.
What do you have, 6 cents?
Okay, so do we have any written comment here?
All right, so I'll start. This is addressed to Mr. Brown. My name is Stephen Ballas. I own the property at 67 Knox Road in Queensbury. I'm an immediate butter to the south of 73 Knox Road. I'm writing this email to support of the variances being proposed in the Rosenberg application. I feel the proposal is keeping with the character of the neighborhood and will not be detrimental to the neighborhood or nearby properties. Further, they are upgrading to a state-of-the-art wastewater system and stormwater runoff mitigation system that will improve and enhance our beautiful lake. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions. This is Stephen Ballas at 67 Knox.
So just to clarify things here, we're not talking now about any permeability problem.
Correct. This is addressed to Mr. Brown. I am writing this letter in support of the Rosenberg's application for variances at 73 Knox Road. These improvements are, number one, in keeping with the character of our neighborhood. Number two, not detrimental to our neighborhood or nearby properties. Number three, include the addition of a modern state-of-the-art wastewater system and stormwater runoff mitigation system that would improve and enhance our beautiful lake. Thank you for your attention to this matter, and this is, I get this wrong, Rolanda Curwin at 61 Knox Road.
Roberta Cahan.
Roberta Cahill. See, I always mess this up. Apologize. Next one is addressed to Craig. We are writing this letter in support of Rosenberg's application for variances at 73 Knox Road. We are summer residents of 79 Knox Road, immediately next door and to the north of the Rosenbergs. The Rosenbergs have always been good neighbors and good stewards of the lake. The setback variances from the shoreline that they are requesting is necessitated because of the long-standing location of the main house. As you are aware, this is not an uncommon, and there is no real way to resolve the setback. It is very positive that they are not proposing to encroach upon the existing setback from the lake at all. In fact, they are increasing the setback from Lake George by 3 feet with a modification to their deck that they are proposing. We believe that the modest expansion of their house that they are proposing is in keeping with the character of our neighborhood and will not be a detrimental to nearby properties. We could not be more pleased with their determination to replace their wastewater system with a modern state-of-the-art system and to improve stormwater control. As a trustee of the Fund for Lake George, I have personally involved the efforts of the Fund for Lake George to stimulate the replacement of aging septic systems and the improvement of stormwater controls to protect the water quality of Lake George. As you are aware, the fund has made significant investments in the town of Queensbury to support septic upgrades. We commend the Rosenbergs for their stewardship regarding wastewater and stormwater control and encourage approval of these variances to support these upgrades. Thank you for your attention to this matter. This is Tom and Renee's West. This is addressed to Mr. Brown. This letter is in support of the setback variances requested by the Rosenberg family at 73 Knox Road. I have no objection to any of the requested variances. As a somewhat distant neighbor, the property line setbacks do not impact us directly, but some reasonable, given the totality of the project and existing structures, we're their immediate neighbors with a similar project, I would support the plan. Regarding the waste and stormwater systems, I am wholeheartedly in support of this plan. Upgrading of on-site systems for existing structures should be encouraged and supported by neighbors and the town, even if reasonable variances are required. The benefit from upgrades more than offsets any encroachment in setback zones in the proposal. In summary, I recommend approval of this application. This is David Wilcox. My name is Bob Glandon. I live at 63 Knox Road. I am writing this letter in support of the project application by Bonnie Ronsberg at 73 Knox Road. The requested variances will allow a currently small house to be more usable by adding interior space to the current rather small bedrooms in the kitchen. Additionally, with these proposed changes, a new modern septic system will be installed, which will be beneficial for the lake. Additions called out for stormwater mitigation are also beneficial. Thank you for your consideration. This is addressed to Mr. Brown. Please include this letter for the record of the public hearings for both the area variance and site plan review applications for the Rosenbergs at 73 Knox Road. I am representing my family's property at 103 Knox Road, and as nearby neighbors, I would like to offer our support for the improvements proposed by their applications. I am aware of the variances required and the house modifications suggested. During their 35 years of ownership of their lakefront property in our common bay area, we have known the Ronsbergs to be considerate and conscientious neighbors and lake users. Their property and its use is certainly in keeping with the character of the neighborhood and would continue to be. The improvements proposed will not be a detriment to our neighborhood, and the infrastructure upgrades to wastewater and stormwater systems will only have a beneficial effect on the lake. Thank you for consideration of my comments, and know that we are in favor of the approval of the proposed improvements. This is Chris Winslow at 103 Knox Road. And the last one that I had was from Chris Novitsky, the water keeper, which he read into the record.
Okay. You have any comment?
Well, the immediate neighbors, the neighborhood in general is supportive of the Rosenbergs application. Not everyone agrees.
So in terms of, it is a pretty steep property, and in terms of runoff management, is there going to be any significant changes there? Now, so they're kind of referring to some trees being removed and that sort of thing. Is that?
The trees removed are related to the area of the wastewater system. And those will be, if possible, based on their maturity, they would be relocated on the site. That, again, that's a site issue, but
yeah. But I just want to get it on the record here that there is going to be some work done to.
Certainly. In the stormwater management that's shown on the plan is as per the requirement. Will there be more? I can tell you that there will be, but it's not necessarily part of the site plan.
Exactly.
Because it's not necessarily required. So I've advised the applicant that you don't necessarily show that on the plan.
Yeah.
It will be something that
the planning board is sure to
that's right.
be a lot more stringent in that area than
Correct.
We are.
Correct. So I think there's been an effort by the applicant to try to achieve certain things in terms of making the house more comfortable, more usable in their retirement. There is support from the immediate neighbors, we've got letters from 3 on one side and 3 on the other. There is an understanding by the applicant of making improvements to the site. I didn't really dwell on the wastewater system because it's not a variance issue.
But the issue is there will be a new wastewater system, and so you have to say, if you just left things alone, that in and of itself is going to be a big improvement.
Yeah, so that's
Excuse me just a second, Mr. Roseberry. So if I left you talk, I got to have him wipe down the, go ahead.
it's, you know, those improvements are tied into the project
Sure.
as a whole, but not necessarily subject to the variance request.
It's probably something that has to be done anyways. You know, you're talking, he's owned this property since 1985, and obviously it probably has never had a new septic system.
Not to my knowledge.
Right, so you're talking, it's probably something that has to be done anyways. I'm sure it's broken down. So it's not something that
It's
going
not,
at us saying
let's
that,
say it's
well,
not
we do
state
this
of
project,
the
we're
art.
gonna do this.
It's not state of the art. The other variance, the shoreline setback variance, that is
It's better than what,
right, and
it's
it's a
better
bit of
than
a-
what you have now.
It's a bit of a quirk in the regulations, in that, in this case, you take the average of the two.
Sure.
Both of those neighbors have talked.
They're way back because of the topography.
Right, but they've also issued letters of support for the project, so there isn't anything that they feel is detrimental in terms of the setback variance in that case. The side yard setback, same thing. Mr. Ballas on the south has indicated his support. It's a relatively minor variance request, but nonetheless, it is part of the request.
Sure.
I would have no problem with them having a much bigger house, but that's what scares me, is these two cabins. I know that they're not gonna plan on using as rentals, but down the road, there's no doubt, this could be a major problem with them having, one cabin has what, 3 bedrooms, the other one has 2, and you got this house. I mean,
One has 2 bedrooms and one has 1 bedroom.
okay. Well,
But again, that's not really a,
I realize it isn't, but I'm saying down the road, I mean, still you got the permeability that's terrible, which is not our concern, but still.
well, wait a minute, it's not out of compliance.
Well, it is.
It's out of
It is.
compliance, but it's improving.
It's improving, but it's still it's way out, it's still.
Yeah, but
20
it's nothing that we're passing judgment.
No, I realize that, it's getting better, but it's still, like I said, that's the only thing that scares me. I know these people are gonna use it as their primary
Well,
residence.
so at this particular time,
it's
we're
not-
going to close down the public hearing, and we're going to poll the board, and we're going to start with Jim.
I think it's important on these ones that we dial in, you know, what's being asked for versus what the idealization of what would be perfect for this lot would be. You know, we can't go back in a time machine. This lot is atypical, you know, with a 2-bedroom and the 1-bedroom cabin in the back. You know, that's not something we normally see up on the lake. And if those things weren't there and they came in before us and asked for this application, what they're asking for this evening, I think we wouldn't bat an eye, we'd approve it in a minute. You know, I don't think it would be a big issue. So the issue really is the total number of bedrooms on the property, if you add them all up. But some of those are only seasonally used, they're not fully utilized during the full time during the year. And I think we have to do the balancing test when we look at the picture and we see what's before us here. So I think the Rosenbergs, in wanting to retire on their property, most anybody that had lived in the conditions that most people have summer homes up there would want an improvement to make them more usable year-round. Some suggestions have been made about improving the permeability on the property, maybe removing a driveway or something. That's something to consider in the long-term plan for the property. I don't think we can compel anybody to remove buildings on their property, that we have any right to do that. You know, we can suggest it. It can be suggested by people outside in the public, as it was on the record this evening. But I think what's being proposed here, if we look at it just for what's being done to the home, yes, it's adding one more bedroom, you know, in totality, but it's not likely that those bedrooms are all going to be occupied 24/7, 365 days a year. You know, I think it's a retirement home, and I think we have to keep that in effect. We can, you know, think about what's going to happen in the future to the property when it sells someday, and that's something that will have to be dealt with at that time. But there's going to be improvements with a brand new wastewater system. There's going to be improvements to the runoff on the property. And at the same time, the requirement for the setback from the lake, you know, that's based upon the averaging of the 2 adjacent properties. And I think we all have come up against that one before. So I would be in favor of the project as proposed.
Kathy?
I do have a problem with the floor area. It was already, you know, over existing requirements, and it's going up quite a bit. I think we can ask these questions. I mean, yes, the permeability is improving ever so slightly, but there is a lot on that property, and the macadam's excessive, that alone. You know, we can't, well, I don't know, we could possibly put a condition on, I'm not sure, that in order to get the variance, we might condition that. I think we actually can. I think as proposed, I'm not in favor, but with some adjustments to the, maybe reducing some pavement or something to that effect, I could. And there are quite a few bedrooms, I mean, I counted them up, I don't know how many we're adding, how many exist? You're
There's
adding-
3 in the main house, 2 in one of the cabins, and 1 sleeping area in the other cabin. That makes 6. They'd like to add 1 bedroom.
6 in the house.
No, 3 in the house existing.
There's a master there.
That's the proposed house. There'll be 4.
1, 2,
So they're gonna go from 3 to 4 in the new home.
5. Okay. So, oh, I'm sorry, I misread something. Okay, 1, 2.
So it'll be
yeah,
total
okay,
7.
all right, okay.
From
just
3 to 4 in the main house, and the cabins stay as they are.
Okay, well, that's, the bedrooms, I guess, are manageable, but if there would be a way to, I would be happier if there was a way to reduce some.
Yeah, and just to clarify from a wastewater standpoint, there was a comment about number of bathrooms.
Mhm.
That makes no difference in terms
No,
of.
it's based on bedrooms.
So-
I think it's a little excessive, and I'd probably be against it as proposed.
Okay. Michelle?
I'm reluctantly in favor. But I guess I am in favor. It is a relatively modest request. I think it would be in keeping with the neighborhood. I think you have, addressed the balance test well, especially looking at alternatives and looking at the impact on the environment. So that's why I'm in favor.
John?
Yeah, I agree with Michelle and Jim, definitely. Like I said, the only problem I have is the future of that property because of those cabins. But like I said, I would agree with them having a much larger house if it wasn't for those cabins. But I'd be on board. Jim gave a good explanation, so I would be on board with it.
And I too support the project. I don't see where it's a major change, and it allows the property owner to more totally utilize the property. So I'll support the project myself. So with that being said, I'm going to make a motion that we approve area variance 48-2020. A public hearing was advertised and held on Wednesday, December 16th, 2020. And upon review of the application materials, the information supplied during the public hearing, and upon consideration of the criteria specified in section 179-14-080, parentheses A of the Queensbury Town Code and chapter 267 of New York State Town Law, and after discussion and deliberation, we find, per the draft provided by staff, that there is not an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood, nor a detriment to nearby properties. In actuality, only a small change is being made to the existing property to make it more livable year-round. Feasible alternatives have been considered, but will not meet the needs of the applicant. The requested variance is not substantial, given that the property has existed in this type of configuration for quite some time. There is no adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. We feel that the addition of a new wastewater system will be a dramatic improvement to the environmental conditions. The alleged difficulty is not really self-created. It was created years ago when the hodgepodge of the property was put together. In addition, the board finds that the benefit to the applicant from granting the requested variance would outweigh the resulting detriment to health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community. The board also finds that the variance request under consideration is the minimum necessary. Therefore, I make a motion that we approve area variance 48-2020. So we have a motion. Could I have a second?
Second.
Jim? Call the vote.
Mr. Hankel?
Yes.
Mrs. Hayward?
Yes.
Mrs. Hamlin?
Regrettably, no.
Mr. Underwood?
Yes.
Mr. McCabe?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Do you need anything?
Sure. Yes.
You can thank them.
Yeah, here.
Loudly, I guess.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Give them help.
Oh, here's some.
That's all right, it's a little bit.
So our next application is AV 49-2020, Rockhurst LLC. The applicant proposes to demolish existing buildings to construct a new 2,400 square foot footprint home with 4,300 square foot floor area and exterior patio areas. The project includes site work, fill, grading, stormwater management, shoreline, landscaping, new septic and water supply from the lake. The planning board site plan review for new floor area in a CEA. Relief is requested for height and shoreline setbacks. The relief required, the applicant requests relief for height and shoreline setbacks in the waterfront residential zone. Section 179-3-040 dimensional requirements. The new home to be constructed is to be 29 feet 10 inches where 28 feet is the maximum height allowed. The new home is to be 50 feet from the shoreline where a 75-foot setback is required. The parcel involved was part of a subdivision in 1993 where the town code required a 75-foot setback. Today's code would be 50-foot setback from the shoreline. Criteria for considering the area variance according to Chapter 267 of Town Law. In making a determination, the board shall consider, 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of this area variance. Staff suggests that minor impacts to the neighborhood may be anticipated. The applicant proposes a new single-family home and removing two existing camps. 2, whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. Feasible alternatives may be limited due to the configuration of the parcel along the shoreline. 3, whether the requested area variance is substantial. The relief requested may be considered moderate relevant to the code. The relief requested for height is 1 foot 10 inches, and the shoreline setback relief requested is 25 feet. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district, the project may be considered to have minimal impact on the physical or environmental conditions of the area. Whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, the difficulty may be considered self-created. Staff comments, the applicant proposes to demolish existing buildings to construct a new single-family home with a 2,400 square foot footprint and a 4,300 square foot floor area. The project includes site work, fill, grading, stormwater management, shoreline landscaping, new septic, and water supply from Lake George. The plans show the height area that is above 28 feet. The shoreline setback is due to subdivision of 1993 and the code requirements for setback at that time. The plans show the work to be completed on the site and the new home to be constructed.
Thank you. Sorry to have you go through that. For the record, Dennis McElroy from Environmental Design. This is a project represented by my office. It's not my project, but based on a suggestion from the attorney, John Allen, who I think is connected somehow Zoom or somehow here tonight, they've requested the project be tabled, the application be tabled for the full board.
Okay. So, John, will you make that?
Yep. And it's gonna be tabled till when?
For the first meeting in January.
January. Okay. I'll make a motion to table area variance 49-2020, the Rockhurst LLC, until January 2021, with any new information submitted by December 15th, 2020. Is that cool?
I would say by next, if there's any new information.
If there's any new information by...
Prior to December 25th.
Okay. Well said.
So just hold on a second. So just for clarity, a public hearing was advertised tonight.
Correct.
Do we still hold the public hearing?
So you open the public hearing, you keep the public hearing open only because if the project does change, then those that wish to speak should comment on the project as it has changed.
Okay, so at this particular time, I'm going to open the public hearing for AV 49-2020, but I'm going to ask that any comment be held until the final proposal is presented to the board. So, do we have the motion? So, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Kathy? Call the vote?
Mrs. Hayward?
Yes.
Mr. Underwood?
Yes.
Mrs. Hamlin?
Yes.
Mr. Henkel?
Yes.
Mr. McKay?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
What was that date again? Table till when?
So January 2021.
Just January, the first meeting in January?
Mike?
Question, somebody,
Oh, go ahead.
I can't write with this hand.
Yes, I just had an administrative question.
Sure.
you can come up to the mic.
You can come up here.
I'm sorry. I just had an administrative
Sure.
question. When an applicant is going to table a request that is open for public hearing, shouldn't that be identified at the beginning of a meeting instead of waiting till 2.5, 3 hours and then?
Well, it probably
I think the
should.
guy knew ahead of time he's going to do that, and that's fine, it's his right, I have no issue with that. But I would think you would notify the public that.
Well, I made that attempt early on, and it was not, brought to our attention at that particular time that somebody wanted to do that.
I have no, I'm not cooling.
So I was trying to avoid that situation, but
I think it's very inconsiderate of the people representing the applicant to do that. Just notify people, I would ask that.
Did we know that?
I'll try to do better next time.
Did you know that went
Sure.
to a head though?
No.
We didn't know it? Yeah. I understand his
Yeah.
problem. I would have been ticked too.
So, we got a couple of other things that we got to take care of
Those in
here.
the back,
So if I could,
can we have them leave so that you can complete your business? Excuse me. I'm sorry, our meeting's not over yet, so if you could take your discussion outside, thank you, I appreciate it.
okay, so the first issue at hand is we have to nominate our officers for next year. So I'm going to make a motion.
Can we advertise in the Post Star first?
It's not public hearing. This is just private among ourselves.
okay.
So I'm going to make a motion that Roy be our secretary for 2021. Just so you know, I've already talked to Roy about it, and he said he would be more than happy to continue in his position. So I made a motion. Can I have a second?
Second?
Michelle seconded. Call the vote, please.
Mr. Hinkle?
Yes.
Mrs. Hayward?
Yes.
Mrs. Hamlin?
Yes.
Mr. Underwood?
Yes.
Mr. McCabe?
Yes. So I'm going to make a motion that Jim continue as our vice chairman for 2021. I've talked to Jim, and he's more than happy to take care of the job for us. So we have a motion. Can I have a second?
I'll second. Now,
John?
how come that's only a one-year position when, shouldn't it
I
be longer
haven't
than
done
that?
anything all year.
But shouldn't it be,
Give him a chance.
It's Andy.
shouldn't it be longer than, like,
Look, that's
That's
staff.
the way I
You
do it?
Take that up with staff.
so the secretary's the same thing? I thought it was longer than that.
No, they're yearly positions that you nominate each year.
So,
Terms are longer.
so call the vote, please.
He can.
Mr. Underwood?
Yeah.
Mrs. Hamlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Hayward?
Yes.
Mr. Hinkle?
Yes.
Mr. McCabe?
Yes. So I realized that it was difficult to get your training in this year. And so I've requested of Laura that she have our staff put a 2-hour presentation on for us on one of the months, or one of the months when we have only a single meeting that month. And so the second meeting will be our 2-hour training. Does everybody think that's a good idea, or
But
not?
not for this year.
Okay, so the 4 hours that
No,
I
it'll
did,
be
whatever,
for-
is that,
For next.
So some of the members have completed their 4 hours for this year, and this would be simply for 2021.
Right.
So the people that I still need information from, I think I gave them information about it.
Yep. Hey, you sent those
Hold on.
emails.
I'm on it.
I was gonna say Kathy needs to provide it, Michelle needs to provide it. There we go. Brent, John Weber, and that's it from, the rest of you have completed it for this year. So for next year, just so that you're aware, I will pursue asking council or some other entity to assist with that. There's a handful of them out there. There's a handful of folks that would happy to do a Zoom meeting, and then we would be able to attend that. I may not do a 2-hour stint in one meeting, but we'll see.
So you
I'll
know
pursue
what,
it.
so if you could take care of half of our training, and then we could do the other half some other way.
Okay,
So that's what I'm proposing.
sounds good.
So I've completed 1 year of service. I'm happy with what we've done. I went back and mentally reviewed all of our cases, and I feel pretty good about what we did. I might like to change 2, but that's just me. But I think by and large, we did a good job. We have one pending Article 78 out there. That's never good, but I don't think we could have avoided that. We were probably going to get one from one side or the other, no matter what we did. So,
that's twice from Holly Road.
yeah, I know. That's
The other
right.
one was Roberts's,
Yeah.
Article 78.
Yeah.
We can't win sometimes.
That's right. So they have a lot of money up there, and so
Hollywood.
they aren't afraid to spend it. So, but yeah, I think so. I think as a goal for 2021, we should try to make our motions a little stronger. And so for a typical area variance, you have, well, for an area variance, you have 5 criteria, and really, you only need 1 to pass it. But in reality, I think you ought to make a strong course for 3. And so each of our motions that we do, I think we should pick 3 of the 5 criteria and make a strong statement about that particular criteria. And I think if we do that, our motions will be hard to challenge.
So you're saying only when we're making the last motion, not individual, when we're doing our individual?
No, when we give our opinions, you gotta make sure that you have some reason before it, but in particular, the motion, if it's called to task, they wanna see, what your criteria is for, judging or what your personal criteria is for judging the 5 criteria. And I think that you should have some sort of strong statement about at least 3. Sure. 1 is good enough, 2 is okay, but if you have 3, then you've made a really strong
Standing
motion.
when it comes to like an Article 78.
Yeah.
And I think everybody on the board too has done a good job because, we're here to grant variances, not to just deny every person that comes in with a request. So keep in mind, do the balancing test in your own mind, and you have to look at each situation uniquely. It has nothing to do with what happened or what you said, like on a height variance or things like that. You have to look in your mind and say, like, how much of this building's sticking up in the air? How much is it the whole thing, or is it just like one portion of a chimney or something like that? So keep in mind, what's reasonable, what's unreasonable, and you have to be able to say no, because some things come in that are ridiculous, but I think those are obvious, those ones.
So with that, I'm going to make a motion that we adjourn tonight's meeting. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Everybody have a good Christmas.
Happy New Year.
Be safe.
Christmas
Yeah,
is
hopefully
happening.
next year's better.